feel like a wizard. Science. Stripping. Good morning, HFC kids. We are back with another video lesson. This week we're starting out with a science activity. You can find this on the HFC Kids Google Drive or on our Facebook group. There will be more details of how you can do this at home, but I'm going to release this cloud. That's so cool. I just made my own little cloud in a mug. So that activity is just one of many activities you can find on our Google Drive and on our Facebook group. And this is our last video that we're filming together, but I will continue to be uploading some activities and resources, coloring pages, little quizzes, things like that on those two sites. So go ahead and check those out so you can stay tuned on all the different activities and stuff you can do for the future. One of the things we did this month was in the 4th and 5th grade packet that we sent out, there was a little quiz asking about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, all leading up to the story of Moses that we're studying now. And on that quiz, Claire Solomon sent in her answers and she got 100%. She got them all right. It was super cool. So great job, Claire. Keep on going. You guys can all send in your different answers and your different coloring pages for opportunities to get shout outs in one way or another. So this is week 4 of us learning about the story of Moses. And last week we ended with the Israelites making unleavened bread in a hurry, just in case Pharaoh decided to let the people go. When they finally received word that Pharaoh said, "Get out of here," they had to get all their stuff together really quickly, eat their bread, pack their food, pack their stuff, and head out into the wilderness to start tasting that little bit of freedom. But they were probably nervous because there were a ton of them, and most of them had never been outside of Egypt before. So yeah, they were free, but did God just leave them to wander around, not knowing where to go? They were probably a little bit nervous. So we're continuing our story in Exodus chapter 13. And it said while they were wandering around, God was still guiding them. Actually, he even kept them from going into lands where enemies could have been sitting. Because if you walk onto somebody else's territory, you could be in really big trouble. And none of these guys were ready to fight a battle or to go into war. They had just come out of slavery. They were still trying to figure out what they were supposed to be doing. So God was guiding them. In Exodus 13, verses 21 and 22, it says, "The Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way." So they had a giant cloud going in front of them, and they just followed the cloud, and that's how they knew the right way to go. And then at night, he gave them a pillar of fire to give them light, so they would travel by day and travel by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. So God never left them. We talked about how he's all-seeing and in all places. He's omniscient and omnipresent. He was always with his people in the form of a cloud or in the form of fire to guide them through the wilderness as they left Egypt. They're wandering through the wilderness, not really sure what's coming next, but trusting God. And God speaks to Moses and says, "Get ready. Pharaoh's gonna come after you, and I'm going to show him once and for all that these are not his people. He needs to back off and let me lead you." So God is about to do another fantastic thing, just like he warned them before he sent all the 10 plagues. And he told Moses to take the people up to the Red Sea and then set up camp. They'd been walking all day and all night. He said they could set up camp, eat some food, hang out right there by the Red Sea. But eventually Pharaoh was going to be on his way. So They go, they set up camp, they sit down, they're waiting, and they're not sure where they're going next because they're up against the water, and then the other direction is back toward Egypt, and they're not going back to Egypt. And then they hear Pharaoh's chariots coming. Pharaoh's brought armies of people, like hundreds of guys on chariots, on horses, ready to fight and come and either kill them or take them back to Egypt, back to slavery. And this was all a waste of time. And they start to see them off in the distance, and they start questioning. They're like, Moses, why did you bring us all the way here just to die? Now pause. So we interrupted the story to remember who God is in this moment. The Israelites are freaking out. It's as if they didn't just see God do all of these miracles. Do they not know that He has the power to help them in this time too? Let's think about some things we know about God, some things we've learned. One, He listens. We learned that when we talked about Abraham's servant and how he prayed for Isaac to find a wife, and God listens to his prayer and sends Isaac Rebekah. We also learned that God has a plan. We learned that in the story of Joseph, that even though he was betrayed and sold into slavery, God used Joseph to save the Israelite people and the Egyptian people who were in trouble because of the famine. We learned a couple weeks ago that God sees and God knows. That's omniscient. He sees things. We saw that God was watching over Moses when he was a baby and when he got delivered into Pharaoh's palace. That's omniscient. We also know that God is omnipresent. When Moses ran away from Egypt, he was still able to go into the wilderness, and God was still there. God is everywhere. He's omnipresent. And this week we have a new omni word, and that's omnipotent. Omnipotent. Remember, omni means all, and then potent or potent. In this way, you say omnipotent. That means power or powerful. So omnipotent means all powerful. So we know that God is full of power. We saw that with all 10 of the plagues, and we're about to see it again because God promised Moses He's about to do something really big and powerful to show Pharaoh that he is the one that's in control. So that omnipotence is something that the Israelites need to remember and not freak out so much when they're in that situation. But that kind of happens to us too. It actually just happened to me yesterday. I was freaking out about something because I didn't have control over it. And I completely forgot that I worship a God that is in control of all things. And I shouldn't have been worried about it. I shouldn't have been stressed. I could have just trusted in God and known that He has the power to do amazing things. That's our bottom line for this week. God has the power to rescue us. God had the power to rescue the Israelites. Our special verse for this week is from Psalm 91, verses 14 and 15. And this is God talking. He says, "Because He holds fast to me in love, I will deliver him. I will protect him because he knows my name. When he calls to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and honor him." And the him in this case could be you. He will rescue you and honor you. When you call on Him, He will answer you. In this case, Moses is about to call on God, and God is going to rescue him and the Israelite people. So unfreeze, unpause. We're back to the Israelites, forgetting to trust in God. But Moses is a good leader who knows who God is, who knows how powerful God is, remembers that God made a promise to him, and he calls on the name of the Lord. And he says, we're in Exodus 14, verse 13, and it says, Moses said to his people, "Fear not, stand firm, and seek salvation of the Lord. He will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you will never see them again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. So he's saying, don't worry, God's gonna take care of you. He's gonna fight for you. You don't have to worry about fighting. And then in verse 16, God replies with, Moses, lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will not go after them. I will get the glory over Pharaoh and over the Egyptians, of all his host, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, that I have gotten glory over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. So that's what Moses did. He followed God. He stretched his hand out over the sea, and the waters began to split. They split apart, and the ground underneath them, like in the bottom of the ocean, the sand's still wet. No, it became dry. That's the miracle that God worked. God has the power to rescue. And he split that water, and it became like walls on either side, and the ground was dry. And all the Israelite people could walk through. And God was able to stop the Pharaoh's army from still coming after them. He stopped them. And it actually said that he sent the cloud and the fire that he was using to guide them. He sent them over to the Pharaoh's army to confuse them, to freak them out, and to stall them so that the Israelites had enough time to get all the way through the sea before the Pharaoh's army came after them. And actually, after the Israelites made it through, once they were clear on the other side, God was right. He was showing them that he was more powerful, and that Pharaoh couldn't mess with God anymore. And as soon as the chariots started chasing after the Israelites, the waters from the wall collapsed down and broke their chariots and killed the men. And now there were no more Egyptians chasing after them, and the Israelites got to see how big and powerful God was, and that he was willing to rescue them. And the Pharaoh, the last thing he saw before he died was that he was wrong to fight against God's people, and there was nothing that he could do to defeat God. Verse 31 ends this story with, Israel saw the great power of the Lord that he used against the Egyptian, and the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord, and they believed in his servant Moses. So that sets up the rest of the story of Moses really well, because they actually got to see that Moses could speak to God, and God was taking care of them. And now they didn't have the fear of the Pharaoh's army chasing after them anymore. Now it was just them in the wilderness, and they were on their way to a promised land. This week we talked about Moses leading the Israelites across the Red Sea. So we're going to make this crossing the Red Sea craft. And when I was a kid, I thought that the Red Sea meant that it was actually red, like the water was red. And we just learned about all the water being turned to blood, so I thought it was just still red. But the Red Sea in real life is not actually red. So we're just creating our own sea with blue water, and you can use markers. I've already started to decorate it, and you can use markers to decorate your sea paper to look as much like the ocean or the sea as you would want until it looks about like this one. So that's how you'll start out. That's your first step. And then you're going to have another piece of paper representing the sand that's under the sea. And we remember in our story, Moses and the Israelites went across the Red Sea on dry ground. So there's the sea, and then there's our dry ground. So I'm going to show you how to fold this so we get the effect of the water that folds up almost like walls. The Bible says it was almost like the water became walls around them, and they had a tunnel that they were walking through when they crossed through the Red Sea. So to get those walls, the first step is you are going to cut your paper in half. It doesn't have to be a perfect straight line or perfectly in half, but generally in half, right down the middle. And then with each side, you're going to fold it a little bit, the inside part, you're gonna fold it just a little bit so that you have a little piece to stick and glue down once you get the wall put up. And then you're gonna fold it again. I'm gonna turn it this way. Fold it again so that you have a lot sticking out over the edge. See how I have a lot right here? Sticking out over the fold. And then you're gonna take this little bit that's left and fold it back. So you have two flaps. You have this flap, this big flap that you folded right here, and then you have the little flap that you folded right here. And then you're going to take your glue, take some glue, and line up the outside edge here, the big flap, with the outside edge of your dry ground paper. And glue it on right here. And then you're going to take the outside piece, this little flap, put some glue on that so you can glue it down. And bring it out however far forward you want to bring it. I'm going to bring it about right there and press it down to glue that side down. And you're going to do that for both sides. You're going to fold the other side and do that. And then once you have both sides folded up, you can draw with your markers or with pencil, you can draw Moses and the different Israelites crossing the Red Sea. And in the Bible, it doesn't tell us exactly how many Israelites there were, but a lot of people believe that it can be anywhere from 500,000 people to 2 million that would have been walking in one big group through the Red Sea. So you can put just a few people, or you can put a whole ton. I doubt you can draw all 2 million, but you can draw them going through the middle of your Red Sea. Well guys, thank you for joining me for another week of online lessons, and this was our last one. So next week, I'm excited to see some of you in person and then eventually start making our way to seeing all of you again. It's been so fun having you along for these online videos and for the boxes and all the different activities that we've done together. And I am also so ready to get back to having regular lessons together. So don't forget to register for next Sunday where we can be in large group kids church together again. Bye guys. Bam, bam, chicken and ham. We're done.